Some tales are creepier than others, but nothing beats seeing an actual location where strange stories previously took place. These hospitals were designed to save and treat individuals suffering from various illnesses, but the great majority of people still die in them. The world is full of deserted, abandoned hospitals with tragic stories or strange unfinished business. So sit tight, because today we'll bring you the top 10 abandoned hospitals around the world. Now guess which hospitals will occupy the top 3 spots in our video. Hint, they are all from the same country. Watch this video till the end to find out. Number 10. Raf Nocton Hall Hospital, Lincolnshire, England. Raf Nocton Hall is an abandoned hospital located in the grounds and the remnants of a lovely listed mansion located near the village of Knockton. It is a historic structure that dates back to 1530. It was originally built as a mansion and housed various owners. During both World Wars, the stately rural estate was converted into a hospital, where it treated many injured troops for decades. Knockton Hall has never been rebuilt since it was destroyed by fire in 2004. Today, all that remains of this once grand structure is a shell. The RAF hospital is claimed to be haunted by various patients, although, because the facility was infrequently utilized, this is controversial because not many people died at the site, and the crumbling, scary ambiance possibly adds to the current tales of the paranormal. Number 9. Sai Ying Pun Psychiatric Hospital, Hong Kong. This old psychiatric hospital, or what is left of it, is a lovely 2-story granite building erected in 1892. When Hong Kong was a British colony, it functioned as the housing quarters for the European nursing staff of the Civil Hospital, which was the hospital for British and other Europeans. During World War II, Japanese forces took over this hospital to keep prisoners of war. It was reportedly utilized as an execution ground by Japanese troops throughout the war. The well-documented incidents of European women being raped, sometimes followed by decapitations, adds a new degree of evil to what happened here during the occupation. Following the war, it was converted into a psychiatric hospital. Since it was abandoned in the 1970s, stories of ghost sightings have circulated. Because of the numerous strange stories that have surfaced, it has become famous as the High Street Ghost House. Number 8. Old Changi Hospital, Changi, Singapore. Old Changi Hospital, which was built in 1935, first operated as a Royal Air Force hospital. The innovative reinforced concrete structures were inspired by traditional colonial residences. During World War II, Japanese soldiers took over the hospital. The buildings were briefly converted from a military post to a prison camp during the Japanese occupation. The Changi housed almost 50,000 detainees, including captured Allied personnel. The hospital had Kempeitai torture cells, as evidenced by a room with massive chains hanging from the ceiling and blood-stained flooring. According to rumors, screams may still be heard echoing around the hospital halls late at night. After merging with Tao Payoh Hospital to establish Changi General Hospital, it formally discontinued services in 1997. Number 7. Clark Air Base Hospital, Angeles, Philippines. Wretched and on its final legs, the Clark Abandoned Hospital is currently being reclaimed by nature and the spirits trapped within it. The hospital was erected by the United States Air Force and started operating in 1960. This hospital used to be where Vietnam War wounded were transported for medical treatment. How did a location become the Philippines' most haunted? This site went from being a thriving hospital to being devastated and deteriorating ruins. The strange energy and sensation you experience as you walk through the gate is heightened by the anguish and fatalities caused by war. Because it is so horrifying, many ghost hunters promised never to return. Following Mount Pinatubo's volcanic eruption in 1991, the hospital was buried in 8 to 13 inches of ash and left in ruins. Number 6. Severals Mental Hospital, Colchester, England. Built in 1910, this co-ed hospital is a wonderfully elegant structure created by architect Frank Whitmore and a patient's nightmare of experimental psychiatry. Severals could house up to 2,000 patients at any given time. During the hospital's early years, the admission standards were rather skewed, with some women being restricted to the rooms for being sexually assaulted or having a child out of wedlock. According to reports, individuals at this psychiatric facility were tortured. People who had treatments at Severals were allegedly not mentally ill at all. Electroconvulsive therapy and lobotomies were widespread treatments, with many of them being performed on women whose only sign of madness was their gender. In the early 1990s, the institution closed as a mental hospital. However, until 1997, a small section stayed open for the treatment of elderly people suffering from the consequences of a severe stroke. Number 5. Beelitz Heilstätten Hospital, Berlin, Germany. Sometimes abandoned buildings only appear frightening. Although they were once home to a regular manufacturing factory or a harmless industrial activity, the only thing creepier than this abandoned hospital structure is its history. This Berlin hospital has a harrowing past, since it was initially designed as a TB facility to treat Nazis during World War II. This is the same hospital where Adolf Hitler was treated after being injured in World War I. After being occupied by the Russians in 1945, it was used as a Soviet military hospital for the following 50 years, until 1995, long after the Berlin Wall fell. A few portions of the facility are still in use as a neurological rehab facility for Parkinson's disease sufferers, but the remainder of this complex has remained abandoned and deserted. Number 4. Volterra Psychiatric Hospital, Volterra, Italy. Volterra is a breathtakingly gorgeous medieval hilltop village in Tuscany. However, there's a lot of evil underneath this lovely facade, and Volterra is steeped in local folklore and home to a number of horrific sights. Volterra Psychiatric Hospital is one of them. This facility was a breath of fresh air when it first opened in 1888. However, the hospital grew to house 6,000 patients and developed a reputation for mistreatment. The Volterra Psychiatric Hospital was not a nice place. In fact, it was later closed down owing of its inhumane treatment of patients. Inside the abandoned mental institution called the Place of No Return, there are empty beds, broken wheelchairs, and walls covered in a cryptic code. It was shut down in 1978 as a result of Italy's new mental health care law. Have you guessed it by now? We are entering the top 3, and they all belong to the US. Number 3. Athens Mental Hospital, Ohio, USA. This historic complex, known as the Ridges, is now part of Ohio University, but it was originally home to the Athens Asylum. The hospital first opened its doors in 1874, and it has had 9 formal name changes since then. According to history, there are approximately 1,900 unnamed patients buried on the grounds of this hospital, which is known for the lobotomy treatments it performed. Athens Asylum gained headlines in 1977 when it housed multiple personality rapist Billy Milligan. He was convicted guilty of a number of offenses, including kidnapping and 3 rapes. The hospital closed in 1993, but the 1978 disappearance of a female patient lends this institution an extra creep factor up to this day. Her body was recovered a year later in an empty ward, where traces from the terrible event could still be seen decades later. Number 2. Taunton State Hospital, Massachusetts, USA. Taunton State Hospital began as the Taunton Asylum in 1851. It was the Commonwealth of Massachusetts' second insane asylum. Taunton State likewise has a dreadful, though concerning past. Doctors were supposedly allowed the freedom to conduct horrific experimentation on their mentally ill patients. One of those insane asylums that sends shivers down your spine. Unfortunately, most of it has been demolished, but part of it still exists as a reminder of what once was. Jane Toppin, a serial killer who admitted to murdering at least 31 people while acting as a nurse, was the hospital's most prominent patient. Stories beyond our comprehension have frequently been discussed, including satanic rites carried out in the basement by those in charge, using reluctant patients as props. The main section of the hospital closed in 1975, and the structures began to deteriorate, taking the top spot at number 1, the most haunted abandoned hospital we have. Number 1. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Kentucky, USA. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is a stunning example of early Tudor Gothic Revival-style building from the 20th century. During its lifespan, the structure became recognized as one of the most haunted places on Earth. It was built in 1910 to house TB patients. The city saw one of the country's biggest epidemics back then. The number of deaths escalated dramatically to the point that they were disposed of by corpse chute down a 537-foot tunnel. Nearly 50,000 individuals are said to have died there. The sanatorium was quickly turned into a psychiatric institution, but the patients continued to die owing to a lack of treatment. More than 400 died here. There are several spooky legends about what happened in that hospital, such as a nurse who hung herself and is said to still haunt the hallways. Another popular one is about a boy named Timmy. He spends the day hunting for someone with whom to play. Despite the fact that the Waverly Hills Sanatorium has been closed to patients for more than 50 years, it appears that not all of its residents have departed. Good luck sleeping tonight. Do you have any other such hospitals near you? Tell us in the comments. If you liked watching this video, click on the link given to check out that video as well. You are sure going to enjoy it. Before you leave us, please subscribe to our channel for more content like this, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. See you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.